That's better. Hey up troops, A Littleton here again with another video, and as I might have just alluded to, today we're going to be talking about sound. Sound is huge in Siege, just like any FPS really, but the amount of information you can gather from different things that go on in the map when it comes down to sound can turn the tide of the game completely in your favor. There's 4 things we're going to go over in this video. Some of them I think you might know already, depending on how long you've been playing the game. If you're new to the game, it's definitely worth listening to all 4. If you're an experienced player, it's still worth reminding yourself of some of the things you can do to help yourself with sound, but also you probably know a few of the things like smashing glass on barricades, etc. Just one more time, a massive shout out to everyone that got involved with the channel recently, especially those on the channel memberships, and there's even been a handful of people signing up to the Patreon, which is in the information below if you want to get involved for any reason. You don't have to, obviously. If you do want to support me that way as well, you can. I really appreciate it either way. Thanks for just even being here to begin with. Oh, and hit subscribe. Do an old man a favour. Without further ado, no more need for waffling. Let's just get stuck into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is changing your audio in the settings using dynamic range. And what does hi-fi mean? What does TV mean? And what does night mode mean? Now, what we're going to need to do is jump on to no less than Microsoft Paint for me to explain this to you. So you've got hi-fi. Let me just get some text quickly. This is the best, trust me, this is the best way of explaining this. Bear with me. So we've got hi-fi, we've got TV in the middle, and then we've got night mode over here, okay? Not capitals, Andy, night mode. Right, so what does... Oh, I've got rid of that. That's embarrassing. What does this mean? So, I'll tell you what it means. This is all... These 3 options are all just about compression, okay? So, when you have a sound chart or a chart showing volume like this, and you've got certain sound waves like this, right? This... let's do a bigger chart, right? So, you've got different sounds throughout the game. So we've got footsteps, which might be here. We've got reinforcing walls, which might be here. We've got gunshots, which might be here. So over the course of a round, you're going to hear footsteps, then you're going to hear a reinforced wall, then you're going to hear a gunshot, back down to footsteps, then we've got nothing. And these are just the different volumes and the different sort of sound waves, whatever you might hear. Bear in mind, I'm not like a physics teacher. Is sound physics? I don't know. I'm not a teacher, but I'm going to try and explain what these things mean. So you've got different sound levels throughout the whole game of what things can be. Obviously, when generally walking is going to be quieter than sprinting, and crouch walking is going to be quieter than walking. So if you were to crouch walk and then sprint and then crouch walk again, that's the sort of thing that you'd be seeing, okay? Now, what these 3 different options do is compress the sound together. So hi-fi is the least compressed, which means it's got the most range in between the different sounds altogether. So if somebody's walking and then there's somebody sprinting, so this is walking, sprinting, reinforcing, and then gunshots, okay? That's what I'm going to divide it into. I've just made that up as I go along. So if you've got somebody walking, it's going to be roughly this volume. Obviously, this is just for display purposes, demonstration purposes only. If you're then sprinting, you go up to this volume. If you reinforce a wall, you go up to this volume. And if you fire a gun, you go up to this volume. So the difference between gunfire and walking is massive. It's that distance, okay? It's quite a big difference. So that means that if you're firing your gun, or if there's somebody else firing the gun near you, or somewhere on the map, generally, you know, not on the other side of the map, but in somewhat close proximity to you, it's going to drown. I was going to say out sound. That's not a word. It's going to drown out the walking, right? Okay. On TV, it's slightly more compressed. So this time we've got walking, we've got sprinting, we've got reinforcing, and we've got gunshots. So what this now means is that if you hear the gunshots and then you've got the walking here, the distance between the gun in terms of like scale on sound, the difference between the gunshots and walking is now much less. So you've got more chance of hearing someone walking when someone's firing a gun. Don't get me wrong, if someone's firing a gun next to you, you're not going to hear anyone walking. But this is to say if someone was 20 meters away firing a gun here, you probably wouldn't hear the walking there. If someone's 20 meters away firing a gun here, you might well hear the walking here. Now, bear in mind, again, this isn't an exact science. I'm just trying to explain that how these different settings affect what you're going to hear. Then you've got night mode, which is the most compressed. So what this means is, still things are different volumes, but the sound of a gunshot is not drastically different to the sound of walking, even though it is still much louder, but the distance between the two sounds, like the space between the two sounds, the volume between the two sounds, I realize I'm doing a lot of pointing at the camera here, and I've realized I haven't got my camera on for this. So here we're going to use this example: walking, sprinting, reinforcing a wall, and a gunshot. So gunshot, sorry, wrong side, gunshots and walking. Now, these are smaller here than they are here. That isn't to mean they're any less loud. So if this is 100 volume there, this is still 100 volume here and 100 volume there. I hope that makes sense. So what all I'm saying is when you're in night mode, the sound of walking and the sound of gunshots is now even, what is that arrow? Is now even less distance, less volume, less sound away from each other. Does that make sense? So essentially, hi-fi TV and night mode is just compression that makes sounds not a million miles away from each other in terms of volume. And if you look in game, we probably didn't even need to discuss it on Paint, but hopefully that's it. We've spent 5 minutes explaining this. If you hover over it, it explains here. Set a dynamic range mode appropriate for your surroundings and speaker setup. Hi-fi, most dynamic and least compressed, providing the most clarity between sounds. That is true, but it means that gunshots are going to be wildly louder than sprinting or walking. Slightly more compression with TV in the middle, and then night mode, which is what I think personally is best and easiest, is least dynamic and most compressed, making all sounds intelligible even at low volume. So that's saying that if you're on hi-fi and you've got the volume on relatively low, you're probably not going to hear walking or sprinting particularly well. Whereas night mode, it makes everything closer together in terms of volume. Still means gunshots are way louder than walking, but it means you've got more chance of hearing walking and gunshots at the same time, depending on where they are within the map. I hope that explains the differences. I didn't know this for ages. That's the way someone explained it to me years ago, and it makes perfect sense. I've actually tried playing on hi-fi recently because someone said, oh no, hi-fi is the way forward. You know, like when people do every time there's a new patch, someone's like, no, hi-fi is definitely better now, this patch. And I try it, and I'm like, it is disgustingly horrible to go from playing on night mode to playing on hi-fi when all of a sudden reinforcing a wall, you can't hear your mates talk in Discord. Trust me, try night mode. Again, it's all down to opinion and personal preference, but for me, night mode is the best. But that's a way of changing your sound and what that means. Now, the next thing when it comes to sound and becoming a better player, I can't really give you a demonstration because I'll be able to see the gun. But I could genuinely shut my eyes and you could fire a gun in Siege, whether it needs to be like a rifle or an SMG. I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between shotguns or DMRs. But if you fire a gun in Siege, I would be able to tell you what that gun is. And test me, honestly. I might get the odd one wrong. Like sometimes it's easy to get mixed up, but generally across the board, I'd be able to tell you every single gun, every single primary weapon that you were firing, I'd be able to tell you. Why is that helpful for sound? Well, one, you're going to be able to know what operators you're playing against, but more importantly, you're going to know what those operators are able to do. So if you're at a breach and you can hear someone firing a 5.56, you know they've got a thermite on the other side. And one of the key things to do is at the start of the round, get on default cams and listen for the sound of the gun that has shot the default cam, and you'll get an operator for free. Honestly, I'm not kidding. It takes a bit of practice, and a lot of people can probably do this. But one of the things with sound is learn what all the different weapons sound like. I know what a T5 sounds like straight away, so you know you've got an Oryx or a Legion. I know what a UMP sounds like straight away. I mean, that's one of the most distinctive ones, so you know you've got a Pulse or a Castle. Again, on attack, I'd be able to tell you what the Spear sounds like. That's really distinctive. The R4C because of the fire rate, the L85, the Para, the ARX especially. I could definitely tell you what 90% of the guns are. I think 95% of the guns. So one, you're going to know what operators you're against, but more importantly, knowing those operators, you're going to know what that operator is available to do when they're attacking you. So not just on a breach, but let's just say you're solo queuing and one of your teammates dies in the next room. Listening to that gun is going to know what operator you're about to fight. If you hear Ying's gun go off in the next room, you know, I can never remember the name of it, T95. If you hear a T95 off in the next room, you know you're about to fight a Ying. You know you might be just about to get candelaed. If you're fighting an AR-33, you know they've got a Thatcher or a Flores. I'm telling you, the more you play, just listen out for it, start listening to patterns. It will make you a better player, knowing what the gun sounds like to know what operator you're up against. Give it a try. Just keep practicing. And again, this is not something you can just learn all of a sudden. You know what? You can just learn an attacking strat. All right, you go there, I do that, job done. And you can learn that pretty quickly. You can't do that with this. It takes time to learn every gun, but over time, you will do, I promise. Next tip is shoot the speakers. I'm just kidding. You can shoot the clock as well, and it makes that stop ticking. That isn't the tip, but This is fairly common knowledge. If you do know it, I'm sorry for telling you again. If you don't know it, this is really worthwhile knowing. When it comes to Siege, there's 2 layers to most windows. Not every window has 2 layers. Not every window has the glass. Some maps, like Skyscraper, just have like wooden slats on the outside. But sound propagates through wooden barricades, no problem. Sound comes through barricades absolutely fine. Sound doesn't come through glass very well. Glass like dampens the sound by like 50%. I don't know if that's the exact number. I've just made that up, but it's probably about 50%. So what you want to be doing as a defender, if you're playing in a room with windows, this is a great example in piano here. You need to smash the glass on the other side of the barricade, and you're going to be able to hear someone rappel so much better with that glass being broken. So you can do that a couple of ways. You can break the window like this and shoot the glass. Punch the glass. And now you'll be able to hear someone rappel outside much better now that glass is gone. However, if you don't want to break the barricade and give the attackers a line of sight in without breaking the barricade themselves, you can just shoot the glass yourself. If you shoot the same place on the barricade twice, you're going to break the barricade. So you don't want to do that. You want to just shoot around the barricade until you hear the glass break. Perfect. Now, if you hadn't shot twice here, that barricade would be in place and the glass will be broken on the other side, and you're going to be able to hear someone rappel so much better. Now, I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this on the video because I can hear it in my headphones, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand by this window and say absolutely nothing and see if you can hear the wind outside. Not a lot there, okay? Now we're going to break the glass and see what you can hear, if you can hear the sounds outside. I don't know if that's going to be picked up on the video, but I can hear the ambient, like, wind and just general outside sounds in my headphones at the minute. But this is a good example. You see how we shot it like 4 or 5 times and we didn't shoot the same place to the barricade twice? That means the glass is now gone and the sound is going to come through the barricade much, much louder. As soon as someone rappels outside here, you're going to hear it so much easier than if the glass was still there. And the cafe is a great example because you're going to want to do it here. You're going to want to do it especially here. And again, like over on Heaven. So you're going to be able to hear someone rappel out there now a lot easier than when the glass was there. If I was any good at doing my job here, I'd get someone or ask someone to rappel outside. But I haven't done that. You're just going to have to trust me. And no, trust me, when it comes to rappelling windows like this, make sure you shoot the glass. Like chalet solar windows is a really good example. Make sure you shoot it, be able to hear everything outside much, much clearer. And last but by no means least is the sound cues in game that you're going to have to learn. Now, first thing I want to talk about when it comes to sound cues is the surface that you're walking on and trying to understand the different sounds that different areas of the map are going to make. So, for example, we're going to start on top main. I'm going to say nothing. I just want you to listen to the sound that it makes underneath my feet. So, firstly, we're on like a concrete surface. Then we're going to move on to wood. Listen to the difference. Can you hear that there's much more bass on the wood? And then we move on to concrete again. Listen to the difference. Now, the other difference is surfaces that you can walk on, like these blue sort of sheets here as well. These are also in blue on Oregon, like around the elbow area. Listen to the difference as soon as you walk on this. Like, that's so distinctive. If someone's crouch walking, you can genuinely hear the difference of this. It's like a bit more crunchy. So learning the different sound cues in terms of that is going to do you a massive favor. Now, what else is going to do you a big favor is listening for other sound cues which are going to give you the idea of where people are in the map. So, first thing you want to think about is dropping hatches. Dropping hatches is... Hang on a minute. Oh, is it more this way? It's more that way, isn't it? Just shoot the jukebox there. The dropping hatches is such a... Hang on. The jukebox is still going. Hello? There we go. Dropping hatches... I mean, that took longer than it should have done, really, didn't it? Dropping hatches is such a distinctive sound and will give you the obvious sound of something along the lines of this. It's such a distinctive sound. Now, the reason I'm using this area as an example is you can bait people into thinking that you dropped a hatch when you haven't dropped a hatch. So one of the classic examples is here on Clubhouse, but more commonly is Oregon, the drop from meeting room into electrical. You know, if you were to drop on Oregon, if this was meeting room electrical drop, you can drop here and people C4 over the top of the bomb. You can bait the C4 or you can bait the smoke by going like this and making it sound like you've dropped the hatch. So in Oregon, you can jump off the stage, or well, fall off the stage in meeting, and it sounds like you've dropped the hatch, and it'll bait out that C4 or that smoke. Obviously, do this 20 seconds before if there's a smoke, but and just make that sound like you've dropped the hatch. But that's the other thing to think about as well is the environment where people are likely to be if you hear them make random shots using default cams. If you know someone's pushing up main and they get to like here and you hear the shot of, you hear a single shot, you know they've just shot the default cam. So using that sound, you can know that they can either be here, which is unlikely to be honest, because most people come up the stairs, come around to here and then shoot the camera there generally. So you could be here, you can wait for that sound, the single shot, and then swing off the information knowing that they can only be here or here. You know they can't be here. You like this whole, that whole area there, they can't possibly be there if they just shot the cam. But you can do that in a ton of different places as well, like over on bottom red. Let me just nip over this side. Over on bottom red this side. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that rotate with one clip, one magazine. If you've got something that you know is around, like a Malusi Banshee trap, or you've got a goo mine, or if you know that there's an Ella mine here using the sound, you can just wait here, wait till you hear, if this is the Banshee, you like keep the Banshee in your focus. As soon as the Banshee's shot, you know that they can only be in a certain place. Same with the goo mine. If you know that there's a goo mine or an Ella mine like underneath this, and you're just waiting here, you know that they have to be, like they can be nowhere else but here in line with this. Like to trip that Ella mine, they can't trip the Ella mine here, you can only do it here. So use sound to that effect as well. But again, in Garage, you can use the default cam to help you. You can do the same in bar. Anywhere there's a default cam really, but also playing off the utility really helps. But I mean, they're just some, I mean, they're fairly basic tips when it comes to sound, but sometimes it's worth reminding yourself that you can get so much information when it comes to playing in game based off the sound of, you know, someone's pushing bar and you hear that and you think, well, hang on, they've just shot the default cam. They can't be here because you can't see the cam from here. They have to be here, or you can shoot the cam from a bit further back if you were here, but you'd know whether the shot is there or there. And, you know, you could be playing here, just waiting for that sound of the default cam to go, and you know where they're going to be. Just, again, something to think about where you can get so much information and make it look like you've got insane game sense by listening to the sound. So there we have it. It's a handful of things that you can do to improve your sound game in Siege. As I said on the end bit there, sound is massive. You can use it to your advantage so much to know where enemies are, to force enemies into certain locations, to know what they're doing. It's basically, I said earlier, like, it makes it look like you've got good game sense. It is just game sense. Like the sound, knowing that someone's in a certain place, it is literal game sense. It's not pretending you've got game sense, but it can turn the tide of the game in your favor without a doubt. If you've watched this video once, twice, 10 times, 100 times, 100 times might be a bit much, 10 times is probably a bit much, but thank you very much for getting involved. I might make the videos, but what's the point if there's no one on the other end there to watch them? So thank you very much for getting involved. You're the GOAT to the channel. Appreciate you watching. See you next time. Cheers.